5 million people depend on a sprawling oasis in the very heart of America's driest desert. This city was born from water engineering so bold it overpowered nature. Until now. With reservoirs plummeting and ancient groundwater vanishing, Phoenix faces an unsustainable future few dared imagine. The engineering that built this city may soon be what brings it to its knees. How did it come to this? Long before Phoenix became a city, the Salt River Valley was home to a civilization that mastered the desert's hardest lesson: how to move water where none wanted to go. The Hohokam people, beginning around 600 AD, carved hundreds of miles of irrigation canals into the desert floor, channeling the Salt and Gila rivers to fields that once fed tens of thousands. These ancient waterways stitched together a green patchwork in the heart of the Sonoran Desert, supporting villages and crops for nearly 1,000 years. When their society faded, the canals silted up and the land dried out, leaving faint outlines you can still see from the air. In 1867, long after the Hohokam vanished, newcomers arrived: miners, soldiers, and settlers searching for a foothold in the West. Jack Swilling, a former soldier drawn by the promise of gold, saw the old canal traces and organized a company to dig them out and bring water back to the valley. The first crops planted by these settlers were grain, alfalfa, and vegetables, and they fed not just the settlers, but the mining camps and military posts scattered across Arizona. By the time Phoenix was officially founded in 1868, the logic of the desert was set. Survival here depended on the ability to capture, move, and control every drop of water that could be found. In 1911, the Salt River east of Phoenix was transformed by a wall of concrete and ambition, Roosevelt Dam. Built under the new Reclamation Act and pushed forward by President Theodore Roosevelt himself, this was a federal answer to the valley's cycle of drought and flood. The dam rose 280 feet above bedrock, creating a vast reservoir that could store nearly 1.6 million acre-feet of water, enough to turn seasonal rivers into a year-round supply. For the first time, farmers and townspeople could count on water even through the long rainless summers. The dam also brought the valley its first real electricity, powering irrigation pumps and lighting up streets that had once depended on kerosene. The Salt River Project, a unique partnership of local users and federal engineers, took charge of managing the new system of dams and canals. With storage and power secured, Phoenix was no longer just a risky outpost. It became a place where people could imagine building a lasting city in the desert. Air conditioning arrived in Phoenix like a miracle cure for the desert. Before 1950, summers meant sweltering heat and sleepless nights. By the late 1960s, most new homes in the valley came with mechanical cooling as a standard feature. Electricity use soared as families set thermostats low and sealed themselves away from 110 degrees Fahrenheit in the afternoons. Developers seized the moment, slicing up farmland and stretching new streets across the desert. The federal government made it easy. Federal Housing Administration and Veterans Administration mortgages let veterans and young families buy houses on 30-year loans, often with little or nothing down. Phoenix's population jumped from about 330,000 in 1950 to over 1.5 million by 1970, fueled by the promise of comfort and space. The dream was green lawns, backyard pools, and two-car garages, all made possible by cheap land, cheap water, and the hum of air conditioners running day and night. Suburban life in the desert was no longer a gamble. It was a lifestyle, and everyone wanted in. In the 1960s, Arizona's leaders set their sights on the Colorado River, convinced the state's growth depended on tapping its distant waters. Senator Carl Hayden and Congressman Morris Udall became the architects of a political campaign that stretched from Phoenix to Washington, D.C. Their victory in the Supreme Court in 1963 secured Arizona's legal share, 2.8 million acre-feet per year. But it came with a catch. California's older water claims would always come first in a shortage, and that legal compromise defined what Arizona could count on. With that bargain in place, Congress passed the Colorado River Basin Project Act in 1968, authorizing construction of the Central Arizona Project. That project would become a 336-mile canal, snaking from Lake Havasu through the desert, lifting water nearly 3,000 feet with a chain of massive pumping plants. The system's scale is staggering. 6 pumps at the Mark Wilmer plant alone, each rated at 66,000 horsepower, were required just to start the climb. Every drop delivered to Phoenix and Tucson is tied to a river a state away, and to the power grid that keeps the pumps running. The city's future now depends on this engineered lifeline, and on the legal compromise that made it possible. The math behind Phoenix's water supply never added up cleanly. The Colorado River Compact, signed in 1922, promised about 15 million acre-feet per year, far more than the river actually delivers in a typical year. That overallocation is now visible in plunging reservoirs. By 2022, Lake Mead, the main storage for the lower basin, dropped below 1,045 feet, less than 30% full. The Federal Bureau of Reclamation's charts show the decline year after year, triggering a strict hierarchy of mandatory cuts. Arizona, holding junior rights under the law, sees its Central Arizona Project deliveries slashed first, while California's senior allocation stays untouched. Each new shortage tier means deeper reductions for Central Arizona Project users, with cities and farms forced to scramble for backup supplies. Beneath Phoenix and its outlying towns, the ground is quietly sinking. Satellite radar and ground sensors show broad bowls of land subsiding by as much as 1 to 2 inches each year in parts of Maricopa and Pinal counties. In some areas south of the city, the surface has dropped more than 10 feet since the 1950s. These changes trace the relentless drawdown of groundwater. Wells that once tapped water at 50 feet now reach hundreds of feet below the surface. Even as imported river water slowed the decline in some neighborhoods, much of the damage is permanent. The aquifer has compacted, losing storage forever. Meanwhile, conservation efforts that once brought steady gains have begun to plateau. Water reuse, once a symbol of progress, now meets physical and legal limits. Each year, the margin for error narrows, and the ground itself records the hidden cost. Phoenix tests the limits of engineering against the reality of nature. As dwindling water defines its future, the world watches. How long can we gamble with survival? Share your thoughts below.